Hi guys.
Hey everyone.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Oh, we kind of match with the florals.
We do.
I have one. Hold up one second.
Yeah, I might as well.
That's funny.
Let me get this all set. Oh, hold on. I might need to. Do I look oily? I don't want to look oily. Been a while.
I know.
Recording right now. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's not exactly the same, but there's flowers on it.
No, I respect it.
I love it.
It's the best I got.
Oh,
All right. Did you guys just finish residency too? Or have you guys been done for a while?
finished 2022.
Okay.
I, my residency is still going on. I have like 3 more weeks. 2 more
Oh,
weeks.
really? So like middle of August you'll be done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yay. Congrats.
Thank you.
I just finished June 3rd, like end of June.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm the old one. I see.
Mhm. We'll defer to you.
Yeah. No, 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 no. That's okay. Hi,
I'm sorry to
Tiffany.
hear crying. That's my dog in the background.
Oh my gosh, I have a dog too, and I like ran to PetSmart to get him a chew because I was like, please, please do not.
Hey y'all, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sorry about the delay. Dr. Cleaver and I were having some technical difficulties on the back end.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't realize we had to register ourselves for the meeting. So
I didn't either until just now.
yeah, so I just got on to a couple minutes ago.
I was like, oh, oops, my bad. We are truly elder millennials sometimes when it comes to the technology. How y'all doing today? Are you excited? This is going to be easy.
Yeah, I hope we get some good questions.
Let's see here. So, of the questions I sent you, do each of you have certain ones that you want to do? I know, Corrales, you had said number 3 and number 7, maybe?
I think I said 5 and 7, but it really
You said
doesn't
5 and 7? Okay.
I'd love to do 1.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good one for you.
Um,
Wait, so we have Corrales, you said which ones?
5 and 7.
5 and 7?
did anyone take 4?
I can do 4 unless you do 4.
Oh, I'd love to do 6.
Yeah, go
Okay,
for
so
I mean, we could all chime
Corrales,
in
5
on
and
each
7.
question.
Yeah.
Of course, you're definitely, please all chime in if you want to. Jacob, for sure, 6. And Maria, which ones did you want to do?
I can talk about 8, 8, and then I can talk about 2. I feel like 2 and 5 kind of go together, I guess, because it's like, well, like after
Agreed.
like the application process. So I can talk about that.
Okay. So
I think I can give input on most. I don't have much to say with that aspect because I didn't really have any like waiver grants or anything.
Right.
But yeah, I can definitely talk about 8 because I talked to a couple residency directors on what their opinions on it were. And then yeah, I can, what was the other one? I guess, yeah, 5. Yeah.
I'll chime in on 7 too because I had a couple different jobs during residency. So I'll just comment on
Okay.
Yeah. I definitely prepared to give input for almost pretty much all of them.
Right.
So I think we'll be all right.
Well, certainly, I think I want everybody to kind of touch on 2 because we want to hear a little bit about your story and why you chose what you chose. And then the students should be joining here shortly. Let's see. We don't normally do a registration with the Zoom, and I think that's part of why it's set up a little bit differently. But we wanted to get actual student questions. So all the questions I sent you, students actually had on their registrations. Let's see.
Yeah, there's gonna be like open questions too.
Absolutely,
Okay.
for sure. And hopefully people have questions because this is an opportunity that is usually not available.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know about how many students will be joining?
We had 20 students register,
Okay.
which is not bad for our very first time.
Yeah.
And then next year, hopefully we'll have more and more, and we'll have all of our residency spots filled instead of having so many empty like they have lately. Let me check in with Dr. Cleaver and see if he figured out how to get on. Give me just.
Yeah, I was literally like registering, like, do you plan to do a residency? And I was like,
I was like, yes.
I'm done, but so one of you guys did pediatrics, right?
I did pediatrics, correct.
Okay. Where'd you do that at?
UAB.
Oh, cool. I heard that's one of the better ones, right?
Okay, I liked it. I thought it was good. So.
No, I was thinking about pediatrics during my 4th year, and
Okay.
my preceptor at Children's Hospital listed some of the ones he thought were best, and UAB was one of the only schools he suggested.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean I really enjoyed it, so I can attest to that. Now I can only say so much since I'm a little biased and went there and didn't experience any of the other ones, but there are a lot of programs in general. Like I feel like for a lot of the specialties, like there's a lot of options for sure.
Yeah. You still work in pediatrics?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's private equity.
Okay.
It's called Clarkson Eye Care Kids. So like 90% of my day is pediatrics. I still do see a little bit of adults, but a majority it's kids. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Are you still in Alabama?
No, I'm in Frisco, Texas.
Gotcha.
I read a little bit where you guys went, but I really don't remember, to be honest.
Same. So I went to SEO for school, and right now I'm in Louisiana for my residency.
Okay.
But I plan on going back to Florida. That's where I'm from.
Okay, nice.
Cool. I went to ASCOP in Phoenix for school, and then I did my residency in Tuba City, Arizona. It's one of the IHS hospitals in northern Arizona.
Nice.
And I'm just staying on there full time.
That's awesome.
But I also work part-time in California because my wife lives here in California. So I work for SECO here in California a little bit too now.
Okay. How long is that commute?
Well, so it's a 3-hour drive to Phoenix and then an hour-long flight to LA.
Okay.
If I just drove it, it's like 8 to 9 hours. So I usually break it up.
Okay.
Yeah, my life's a little crazy
That's
right now, but I like it.
That's commitment, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm heading back after this. I'm heading back to Arizona.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that seems a little bit tiring, but it's good.
But we'll see how I feel now that residency's done. But the way it felt this last year, it was like my time in the car was my me time. So that's where I listened to my books or got, just sat and thought. And I feel like I was never sitting still besides that. So.
Absolutely. Residency is so intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a good way, though.
Yes, in a good way. Absolutely. My residency was an hour from my house.
Oh, wow.
And then there were 2 satellites, and each of those were 2 hours from my house. And I had to go to one of those per week. So 4 days a week was an hour commute, and 1 day a week was a 2-hour commute. It was the only time that I had to myself, just like Jacob said, was in the car driving.
Wow.
in the snow in Michigan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
No, I just drove like 20 minutes to the clinic. I mean, now I live like 5 minutes from my job, so then there's no more commuting for me.
During the week, I'm good. I live like 100 feet away from the hospital.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Going back. I'm I'm 2 houses down from the hospital, but it's just going back to California. That's it.
Yeah.
You made it, Dr. Cleaver.
Hey.
Yeah. Let's roll.
It is 5 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's going to record. I just don't know where it's gonna go. So it should go. Yeah, so maybe it's gonna go to my iPad if so that I can just find it there. But let's roll. We're right on time.
Alrighty. Well, welcome everyone to
Hang
our
on, Tiff.
very first virtual residency panel. I am Dr. Tiff Hughes, the Black Eye Care Perspective Strategic Business Manager. And we have 3 illustrious guests with us this afternoon who will be sharing their journeys and how they can decide on residency. Yes, Dr. Cleaver.
Hey, I'm not recording yet. Let me hit the record button and then you go.
I'll do it again.
Do your thing, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Didn't I tell you, Jacob?
Yeah, Tiff.
Technological issues.
Yeah, no, this is exactly why Dr. Johnson and Pratibha do this stuff, man. Not me and Tiff. All right. I'm gonna hit the record button right now, man. All right, here we go.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. It'll tell us.
Okay. Let me find it.
Press the right button now.
Or maybe we already are recording. It says record on the side.
It says recording, yeah, at the top.
It does.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Cool. Somebody
all right,
just have
great.
To edit stuff. All right. Cool. It's all good. You go, hey, you know what?
All right, we are recording.
Thanks for joining us, man.
This.
I'm gonna shut up. Hello, everybody. Good to see y'all again. All right, I'm gonna shut up.
Welcome to our very first virtual residency panel. Part of what we do here at Black Eye Care Perspective is our goal is to increase the number of Black residents as well as Black optometrists in academia and other areas of industry who need the requirement of a residency. And so we wanted to give you the opportunity to learn more about residency directly from those who are currently or just finishing residency itself. So we're going to allow our speakers to introduce themselves, but we're going to start with our very first question, which is, how did you choose your specialty in residency? And then the secondary question behind that is what does that application look like? And why did you choose the residency that you chose? And we're going to actually start with Dr. Wilson on this one, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, so my first question on my list, I don't know if it was the same for you guys, was actually the grants about supplemental income.
Oh, it is. We're going to get there, but we're going to start with number 2.
Oh, we're starting with number 2. Okay. Got it.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So for me, as I went through, so I am Dr. Wilson, I'm Jacob Wilson, and I did my residency at an Indian health hospital, at a tribal hospital in northern Arizona. And really going through my rotations, I went through 2 different hospitals, a children's hospital and a different Indian health hospital. And I knew hospital-based optometry was the way I wanted to go. And so I looked into some children's hospitals, I looked into some VAs, and IHS ended up being a really good mix of both because I've seen patients as young as 1 to 2 months old, all the way to over 100 years old. So my day can look like anything. And that was important to me, just having a variety of cases throughout the day. I like to be good at pediatrics and good at geriatrics and everything in between. And IHS specifically, you see a lot of disease, you see a lot of things you might not see and that optometrists probably won't deal with in more developed cities because it's really just us out there. We're the only eye doctors for about 3 or 4 hours. So we get to handle a lot of things you probably wouldn't get to elsewhere. Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing. Dr. McGee, why did you choose your specialty?
So my name is Rhea McGee. I chose to go into pediatrics. And when I was, I guess, starting school, I kind of always knew I wanted to do a residency, but I said, absolutely not. No pediatrics. I'm not doing it. It's just not happening. For me, I hadn't really rotated through the clinic. And so it was just the thought of like with kids, it's just too much variability. And then you're expected to kind of maintain that same exam flow, that same timing, but then the kid might not want to cooperate. So at first I said no. But then as I got into my second year, I was observing in the clinic. That was really one of my favorite clinics. So just observing the doctors, how they interacted with the patients, the students, like the creativity that you could see there. So I felt like I went to optometry because I wanted to enjoy my career. So I felt like that was the perfect specialty where I enjoyed what I was doing, but then there was also a level of a challenge to it. So just whether it's with like the diagnosing, the prescribing, or just like trying to get through the exam itself, I felt like it would always keep me on my toes. So that's why I chose pediatrics.
I love that. And what about you, Dr. Million?
So I'm Dr. Corrales Million. I went to SEO in Memphis, and now I'm doing my residency here in Louisiana. It's a primary care residency with an emphasis in ocular disease. And essentially, I chose a primary care based residency because that's what I want to do ultimately. I want to eventually either have my own practice, buy into a practice, kind of private practice is where I want to be. So I kind of like that here in Louisiana, it's very full scope. So, I'm able to do all the medical things that we've learned. I've done a couple YAGs, SLTs, chalazion removals, but then I can also do the run-of-the-mill glasses and contacts. I've seen a 1-year-old all the way up to 100, just like Dr. Wilson. So definitely I like the variability of what I can do in the primary care, private practice aspect.
Very cool. Actually, Dr. Million, would you mind continuing and talking about how does one apply for residency? What does that whole process look like? How long is the residency program? Just as a reminder, everybody, please mute yourself. Go ahead.
Of course. So application process is through the OART match. It's very similar to the OptumCast when you were applying to optometry school. Applications open, I believe, in about October. And that's where you can look up all the different programs within the different schools and IHS and hospitals, things like that. So you turn in your transcripts, you turn in a letter of intent, and you get a couple of letter of recommendations from previous professors and doctors or people that you have mentored you. So you have from October until about, I believe, December, January. Then after all the applications are submitted, you are invited by the programs for interviews. So, you go over there, you can either have a Zoom interview or have a in-person interview where you tour the practices and everything. And then from mid-January to mid-February, so mid-February, that's where you begin to rank your positions. I believe you have 2 weeks. You can kind of do like 1, 2, 3 up to, I believe it's like it's either 5 or 10. I don't remember how many you can rank, but you can rank however many you want. And then in the match process, that's in March, you are matched with kind of the program. So if they rank you number 1 and you rank them number 1, then that's a match. Sometimes people don't match, they go into the post-match. That's where the programs and you as a individual don't match, but that's okay. There is a process after that where even if you honestly didn't apply to residency to begin with, and there's still residency positions open, you can actually enter into that post-match and not go through all of that. So there's still hope, if you don't match immediately. But by mid-March is when you should really find out what position you're going to be going into. And residencies typically are about a year. Some can be 52 to 54 weeks. Mine is 54 weeks where I have overlap with the previous resident, just there's kind of a little bit of a training aspect of it. So my first week I was with my residency director, whereas the second week I was with the previous resident, and she was kind of showing me the ropes and like passing off her recurrent patients to me, just like there's kind of that rapport there. I think that was all. about like the application process.
Thank you for sharing. So basically what you're saying is right now, if you're a fourth year and you're interested in residency, you should be starting to look, is what you're saying. And so
Basically.
So from what I understood that you said, all of the residencies are listed on OR Match. That's the place. So would each of you share, because I'm sure you ranked multiple places, how did you go about your process of deciding what sites to rank and what felt like the right place for you?
I did want to add to that before we get directly into that. One other thing, Kraus hit every single thing. The only thing was you do need letters of recommendation. You're going to need 3 of those. So, I mean, my advice on that would be, 2 should be from like professors or clinicians that you worked with during your time at school or like in your rotation. And then the last one, just my thought, but you don't have to do, should be like a doctor that maybe you've met through like conferences or something, but somebody who has become somewhat of a mentor, who they can't necessarily speak to who you are as a clinician, but they can speak to the person you are, your aspirations, like why you did optometry. So just kind of a different level of like getting kind of deeper into who you are rather than just like, you as a doctor alone. But they can always all just be from professors as well. That's completely fine too. But I can start with your next question if you want to. Just to confirm, it was how the process was for us and like what with our rankings, that type of.
Yes. How did you choose the sites that you chose to rank? Okay. And then how did you choose which one to rank, or which one, 1 versus 4, 1 to 4?
Okay. So for me, when it came to pediatrics, a lot of them, it kind of varies in that you can be hospital based, you can be in academia, like at a school, but when you break it down, you can kind of just do pediatrics. So meaning if you're at a hospital, you probably won't do any vision therapy. That's likely you won't. But if you're at a school, you might do a mix. Or sometimes you have ones where it's more so vision therapy, but that still falls under pediatrics. In my case, I wanted a little bit of everything, but I didn't want to fully go like the vision therapy route. I just wanted to know, okay, when do kids have an issue that, I would refer for, or like even into my own practice if somebody was the vision therapist, when do they need vision therapy, that type of thing. So for me, I just thought about what I wanted when it came to pediatrics. And a part of that too, I wanted to work with infants who had aphakia. So meaning they had cataracts and they needed to have the surgery. So I would be fitting contact lenses on them. So that was big for me when in the pediatric world, I don't, and somebody could tell me if I'm lying, but there's only so many where you can work with the infant aphakics, just fitting the contact lenses on them. So I kind of, kept that in mind. So for me, I also thought about where do I want to be? Meaning, would I mind being in California? Would I mind being in the middle of nowhere? Do I want somewhere more like New York, that type of thing? And then basically, I actually looked before the OR match. I believe it's ASCO on their website. They have a residency directory and it breaks it down completely by like, you can read through each program, what their requirements are. Like if you have to submit posters to different conferences, that type of thing. But I would actually recommend doing that before you even get to applying. So I did that. And then at Academy every year, they do have I forget exactly what they call it, but it's a residency meeting almost, but very informal, where every residency program almost has a table and you can go up and talk to them, talk to some of the past residents, talk to the doctors, the directors. So for my year, that was COVID year. So it was all over like Zoom. So I spoke with a lot of the programs to see if I even meshed with like who like the doctors were, what their goal for their residents was. And then from there, when it came to the ranking, I I did like all of the programs I interviewed with, but I really did go off of do I want to be in that location? And then also, do I feel like I'm going to be well-rounded coming out after? Do I feel like I can build a relationship with the doctors there, the directors? Because although residency's not a hold your hand process necessarily, you don't want to feel like you do want to feel like they're there to support you and help you get through, and you can feel comfortable going to them when you have issues. So I based my first one off of that, which UAB was my first choice, and I ended up matching with that. I will say if you have a site, let's say I think you can match up to 10 or rank up to 10, but if you have a site that you absolutely just did not love when you visited or interviewed with the doctors, you didn't feel like you would mesh there, you'd be happy there. And my personal advice, I would not rank it unless you're a person where you're like, I absolutely want to do residency wherever it is. But because I do know some people where their last rank, they really didn't want to be there, but they still ended up matching. So that would just be my advice, but others might have differing opinions. And plus there's the post match too. You might end up finding a place in the post match that you actually like a lot more than the one you would have ranked last.
That is a really good point. Do not rank places you don't want to go. Period.
Will match.
There's no backing out.
Because there's no backing out.
Well, you could, but it's not a good look.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was long-winded, but you guys.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, okay.
How about you, Dr. Wilson?
Yeah, so I wanted to comment because I actually did go through the post-match process. So I wanted to kind of explain how that went for me. So the first thing I'd say is when you're applying to places, and just like Dr. McGee said, there's the ASCO website. You can go and read everything about the residency. And one of the things it'll say is how many positions they accept. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If a place only takes one position and you know it's popular, it's going to be, tougher to get into. So you might want to consider that as your ranking thing. So I ended up at the end of the day, I was going to rank 3 places 2 days before the match. One of the places I was going to rank actually backed out and didn't take a resident. So I ranked 2 places. They each only took 1 applicant, I think, and I didn't end up matching. So I was pretty devastated with that. I wanted to do a children's hospital. It's kind of like Dr. McGee. I really liked working with the infants, the infant AFAKs, and all of that. And so I started looking, as soon as the post-match happens, as soon as they find out who doesn't match, you're given a list of sites that didn't match. You can start going through, see where you want to go. And there's so many sites in the post-match and so many good sites in the post-match. There's a lot of reasons why places might not match. I talked to like 20 different people in the one day, just different coordinators, different doctors to see if I would mesh with people. And I really liked the IHS site. I had ranked 2 hospitals. I know I want to do hospitals. I had ranked a children's hospital and I had ranked it was like an academic, just ocular disease site, but it wasn't pediatrics. It was just general ocular disease. And so I had pediatrics and ocular disease people calling me that day. Oh yeah, sorry, IHS is Indian Health Service. So I talked to a lot of different people, a lot of different hospitals. Most of the sites I talked to pediatric sites did vision therapy, and I knew I didn't want to do any vision therapy at all. So I pretty quickly was backing away from pediatrics because there wasn't any pediatric hospitals open still. And then I talked with the VAs and I liked a lot of the VA sites. But kind of like I said before, it was only older patients. So the IHS had a great mix. The one I'm at actually has a pediatric ophthalmologist. So I ended up being able to do a lot of the pediatric ocular disease I wanted to do. My fellowship case was on an infant with optic nerve hypoplasia. And so I got to do a lot of the things I wanted to do still, plus more. I'm very confident now in adult ocular disease, which I didn't think would be my thing, but I really enjoy that now. So yeah, post-match is a great option. If it doesn't work out for you the first time around, I really couldn't be happier with where I ended up. Another thing, and I think we're going to talk about this later on too, is looking at the residency sites beforehand, because they don't all pay the same either. So that was a big thing. Because I remember talking to one site that I really liked, and on post match day, and then I looked and it was going to be like 35,000 in a city that was pretty far away. That was a really expensive city, and there was just no way we were going to be able to make that work. So I just looked around. The IHS sites, this year they just got a bump. This is a little plug for the IHS sites. They're all paying 6 figures now for the residents. So if that's something you're interested in.
And I just want to
We're
jump
definitely
in.
going to circle back to that.
Yeah, I want to jump in because Dr. Wilson he's also married, so he has to make different type of decisions. His wife is currently going through her professional program, so he said we. That's what he meant by saying when he said we, right? So I just wanted to jump in there and say that. But IHS is paying 6 figures.
Yeah, they just got approved for 104 for their residents.
Bro, what?
Like
my word,
that is unheard of.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Bro, I bet when I was a resident, I'm sure I didn't make over $30,000. I'm sure it was like $27,000.
Yeah, I think mine
I made
was
less than
one of
that.
the higher ones, and mine was like 42, which is still not amazing, but I think it was one of the higher ones. So.
Well, you paid,
So
if
I
you would
think
have
one of
paid
the
me
reasons
42 10 years ago, I'd have been rich. Hey, 106, but man, holy crap. I hope you guys are listening to this.
They
This is
do
really
that
good
because they
information.
consider you, even though you're a resident at IHS, you do all your own billing and coding. So they consider you a GS step 1, a level 1 optometrist, so they pay you that way. Technically, Tuba City, where I'm at, is a tribal run hospital. It's not run by the government. So I made about 80, I think, which is still more than most, but it is different from the other IHS sites. So don't be surprised if some of them are different, and that's a whole another conversation we could get into, IHS versus federal versus tribal, all of that.
Yeah, so I'll quickly say, so I basically chose my residency also with the ASCO, excuse me, website. Like I said, I wanted to do something in private practice. So when I did my search, I clicked on private practice and then Florida, which I believe there's only one in Florida. So I kind of just like expanded my search closer to home, and that's kind of how I chose here in Louisiana. And there's actually 2 in Louisiana that are private practice with primary with ocular disease. So I ranked those 2, and then I did have a backup Florida choice, which was the Orlando VA, which when I did my ranking, I actually did not rank the Orlando VA just because I knew I did not want to be in the VA. That was kind of just like my backup choice. It was still a good program, just not something I wanted. So I ranked the 2 Louisiana sites, and I actually did get my first choice. So, I was very happy with my choice here.
Now we did touch on pay. So that's one of the detractors why students don't pick to go into residency, because you're, instead of making 80, 95, 100K in the first year out of school, instead you're making, I made $17,500 when I was a resident.
Wow.
That was it. I'm not gonna it was 12 years ago, but so when you all were looking at your sites, how did you negotiate your pay? Is the pay negotiable? That's a good question. And when you were trying to decide on a site, how important was like that pay and the contract, as well as did you make considerations like, will you have to manage interns, or will you have to manage optometry students? And how did that affect your process, your decision making? Whoever would like to answer.
Yeah, so I really don't think there is negotiating the contract for the pay. Mine actually increased. So previously it was $37.50, and now it's like 41,000 or something like that. But I kind of supplement that with working at America's Best. And being a casual part-time doctor, you get paid $1,000 a day, which is very enticing. I don't do it very often, but like once or twice a month I'll go in and work there. There's other options you can do. You can do like Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, Target. There's a lot of different options, but I do think America's Best is one of the higher paying one's for casual part-time. So that's kind of what I do. What was the other part of the question? Sorry, I forgot.
When you were picking your site, did you take into consideration whether or not you'd have to manage students or interns?
Yes. Yeah. So precepting, honestly, before I came into residency, I was a little bit nervous about, but kind of doing it now. So it's actually very rewarding to be able to help those students because we were just in their footsteps a year ago. My first semester, however, the residency did not have any students at all. So from August to December, I didn't have any, but starting in January, we did have 2 residents, and now I'm on my second round of residents. And definitely, I feel like it's helped me as a clinician too, being more so a data interpreter from what they're telling me as opposed to a data gatherer myself. And I kind of feel like that has, like I said, like helped me help my patients more, if that makes sense. So definitely I am appreciative of that now so than like 7 months ago when I wasn't doing it.
Are you with Dr. Heitmeyer?
I'm with Dr. Roten, Chris Roten.
Oh, okay. That was my second guess. I almost did my residency. I ranked Dr. Roten's office.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that sounds like a familiar phrase. I've heard that before. But yes, Dr. Wilson or Dr. McGee, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So on the pay part, it's definitely not negotiable. That's what I was told about residency. Don't even try, because they probably just will look elsewhere if you tried to negotiate pay. That's what I heard. I've never heard of anyone that tried, so I don't know. But I didn't try to negotiate pay. Like I said, the IHS, the pay being higher for the tribal hospitals was important to me. Thing important to remember about that though is I'm about 4 hours from the nearest major city, so there's some give and take there. But there is a little town about an hour and a half away from me where there's an America's Best, and I did the America's Best thing too throughout residency to help supplement the income. And yes, $1,000 a day. It's not the best practice setting always, America's Best, but it's not the worst either. You kind of are able to make it your own if you want to. And then what was the other part? Oh, about precepting. So at my site, I was the only resident and the only student, and that I liked that option because that meant I was the only learner. So there's 6 staff docs, 6 staff ODs, and 1 MD, and all the learning was for me. So and some days that was not a great thing. Some days that kicked my butt, but mostly, yeah. So I mean, I'd come home pretty worn out most days, but I thought it made me better, that I didn't have to share my learning with anyone else. Maybe I would have liked to precept a little, but it wasn't very important to me when I was looking at sites. So. Oh, and then I was going to say too, sorry, Dr. McGee, I cut you off. It was important to me. I thought moonlighting was important to me to be able to make the extra money. So when I was looking at different sites, one of the other IHS sites was even 3 hours further into the reservation than I am. So it would have been 6 hours to Phoenix, 3 hours to get to the America's Best. So I didn't do that one because of that, because I wanted to be able to moonlight and do things too.
So for me, yeah, definitely no negotiations, I would say. But let us know if you do. But for precepting, I actually was interested in academia, like after residency, like working as a professor preceptor, which I didn't end up doing, but I did find that would be valuable if I was able to do it in my residency. It wasn't like make or break, but I was just thinking that would be something beneficial, which at any school you likely have to, whether or not you want to do it. When it came to my residency, and this might vary between the schools, but I don't believe we were able to, like, I don't believe we were allowed to, if you will, work at other places. I think it was just like they just didn't want you to necessarily. But also, if you work at a school, something to consider is there's something called a T license, so like a teacher's license. So meaning technically it was an Alabama license, but only for the UAB school. So I can't, like, even if, which I wouldn't do, but if I was secretive and was like, I'm gonna try and work at just to do a fill-in to make extra cash, that license wouldn't apply. So that is something to consider if you are definitely a person where you're like, I want to do a residency, but I also want to make more money, and I want to consistently fill in or just some of the time. For me, that wasn't what I wanted to do. But yeah, that's just something to consider because some residencies it's in the contract that you are not allowed to, basically. And then I think I touched on that. Oh, I will just add in, because I believe Dr. Wilson brought up, he's the only one at his residency. When I did mine, and I finished my residency in 2022, so I'm a little bit more out of the game than these two. But for me, something I did consider when I was looking at residencies, I wanted co-residents. I didn't necessarily need them to be in pediatrics, but for UAB, we have a contact lens resident and a primary care resident. So we still were, I guess, our individual learners, and we got all of the knowledge and everything from our peds people, our contact lens people, primary care people. But then we still had each other if we wanted to vent or something or just like hang out. So that was a nice aspect and something I wanted because I just think I'm a people person. And even though there were residencies where you can hang out with the doctor, sometimes it might not happen where you do have that relationship at the same time. So just something to consider.
Absolutely. And speaking on that, Dr. McGee, so say you match, you have not taken part 3 of boards. Say for some reason you don't pass part 3 of boards. Do you know what happens, or what can someone still do, or can they still go and continue a residency?
So I actually spoke to 2 residency directors, so meaning they interview applicants, they accept them or rank them, and they told me in their opinion, they would highly recommend that you pass all parts of boards prior to when the match occurs. Now there are people, I do know one person myself where she hadn't quite passed, but she did a residency. So it's not that it's an absolute no, but I do think it makes it that more challenging for you because we're all competitive when it comes to being applicants for residency. So if they're looking at it, it is a risk that they are taking if they do match with you and you haven't passed all our parts. And their biggest reason for saying that was because for them specifically, they were a site where you're signing off on your own charts, you're being credentialed, like you have a license, and you can't really be licensed if you haven't passed all parts of boards. So that was their biggest reason. So I'm not going to say don't apply if you haven't passed all parts, but I would say try to schedule the dates to where you can retake and hopefully then pass prior to when they're going to rank. And you can always, there are people who have gone back. It's not ideal for some, but they've taken a break, just worked, and then they still feel like they find doing a residency beneficial, and then they go back and apply. So it may not be what traditional or what you would like, but if you really want to do one, that is an option as well. And some directors like the non-traditional applicant.
Absolutely, because every site is different. I'm sorry, Dr. Million, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was gonna say, I can touch on that a little bit. So my residency, originally it was supposed to be 1 applicant. When I was applying, the residency director had an extern that was there and he was interested in having her be a resident. So they were going to open up a second position for her. However, she did not pass all of her parts of boards, kind of like we were just talking about. And I'm not sure if it's like per state or whatever, but at least in Louisiana, you can't get your license without having passed all the parts of the boards. And there's a certain date that you have the Louisiana boards test is in July. So they were trying to get her at least to get a license in a separate state, like I believe in Oklahoma, because in Louisiana here, you can do that telehealth, like if the license is comparable or something like that, you know, you can still work here in Louisiana.
Oh, they call that reciprocity.
Yes, that. Yeah, so they were trying to work that out, but I think it didn't mesh well with SEO, the school, like that's where the residency was working with, because she would have started after the start date or something like that, but that was something they were trying to do. So I'm not sure if, like, you know, there's other states or other residencies that possibly can have that licensure by reciprocity. So that was kind of just something I wanted to add there.
If I could chime in, so first, all of the Indian Health Service residencies they will not match you or rank you if you don't have them all passed, because they want you to be licensed and billing for yourself right away. So that was I've even heard stories of applicants they really wanted, but they hadn't even taken part 3 yet. It's not like they had failed it, but they weren't allowed to match them for that reason. So if it's something you're interested in at all, I'd try to get in part 3 earlier than sooner rather than later. I know some of you are probably already in a situation where you couldn't schedule part 3 till, I've heard, April from some of the students already. But I would just keep checking for openings. There's always openings, and if IHS is something you're really interested in. But also, there is one resident at the IHS in Gallup, I think it was. He didn't pass part 3, but New York or some state didn't require part 3. Don't quote me on which state it was. So he was able to get licensed. And because it's a federal site, it doesn't matter what state you have your license from. This is for VAs too. As long as you have a license somewhere in the US, you can work at that site. And then I won't say too much on this because I don't actually know, but from my understanding, a lot of VA sites will work with you if you haven't passed your boards, because they generally have people signing off on your charts throughout the year anyways. But I don't know that for sure. That's just what I've heard.
Talk about by any means necessary. He was like, I'm going to do a residency. Let me figure this out. I can appreciate that type of resilience. So speaking of resilience, so when you all first started as residents, can you talk to me kind of about your transition into actually practicing? How did you start to use the new electronic health record system, if it was different from the ones that you had used at previous sites? And then were there any best practices that you adopted kind of in your first 3 or 4 months that helped you throughout your residency? No, I didn't have this question for you. Sorry. Just came to me.
So at my site, the residents actually have the choice to do EHR or paper charts, which honestly, most of the residencies just stick with paper charts just because it's a lot easier. You know, most of the prior residents did paper. I believe the EHR that the office uses is Eyefinity. And there's some things that I do go on Eyefinity to kind of look up, but honestly, for the most part, it is just the paper charts. And I don't know, I feel like for me, like I have a lot of tech support, and that's kind of helped me kind of boost my efficiency. The techs do a lot. They do all the chair skills, refract and dilate. You know, obviously I go back in and double check things if I need to, but definitely I think that has helped me with the flow of things as opposed to, you know, being in school and being in an exam room for an hour and a half with a patient. Now I can do it for like 15-20 minutes. So definitely I think just try to adapt to new things and picking up on some of what my preceptors or other doctors, I work with 5 other doctors, you know, they've given me tips and tricks too. And I think that's definitely helped me speed up my process. And working at America's Best, seeing 30 patients a day has also helped.
America's Best is kind of like a two-sided coin though, because I feel like I pick up some bad habits over there. I'll come back to the hospital and I'm going too fast and then but yeah, I wanted to just say the biggest thing for this question that I feel like I picked up in the beginning of residency was just being very, very thorough with what I was doing. I feel like I came out of school and I was like checking all the boxes when I was done with my charts and everything. And that was the biggest thing I put into place. Like if I had to stay a little bit longer or a lot longer after the day to chart accurately, that's what my preceptors made me do. And that's not my personality at all, being super detail oriented. And that was one thing that I had to really change in residency, and it helped me do that. So that's probably the biggest thing. And we use an EHR. It's pretty, but the one that they use at the IHS is not very intuitive. It's a lot of free typing. I think the VA is the same type of way. So you have to be thorough. There's no like button to click. You have to type everything in. It's different. So.
For me, I don't remember the name of the EHR we used, but it wasn't too much free typing. It was a lot of like inputting in boxes, that type of thing. For, I was never a person that had like trouble picking up the EHR. But I know some people definitely are. So one thing I would say for sure, right when you get there, if you're a residency where you overlap with another resident, then I would say to ask them, because they're going to know the system. They're just finishing their residency. Otherwise, like ask the director if you can sit down with like one of the fourth year students or your director themselves, like they'll be able to know. But if you have to ask just to sit with somebody who knows it a little bit better who knows it a lot better than you rather, then I would definitely recommend that. Tips and tricks in general, if some cases are like kind of similar. So meaning like you have a patient come in and they don't need any glasses, their binocularity or how their eyes work together is perfectly fine. Health looks good. I don't know if this is bad to say, but you can have, what I did for myself is I made like a Word document, and then like I put like what type of patient it was. So meaning like standard patient, no problems, like, and then I typed what my impression and plan would be. Now I'm a typer, like not where it's too much, but I definitely am thorough when it comes to my charts. And that's something I even learned when I finished my residency and went to this practice, is that you will see some doctors where they just say like, no specs, come back in a year. They might have talked to them about healthy things, but they didn't document that. So I'm a person where I'm going to document every single thing. But anyways, I would do my document and just like type what my plan would be. So on some patients where it wasn't as complex, I could just cut or copy and paste that. And so I didn't have to spend as much time on every single plan, because you do need to think about it. For some of the residencies sites, it's your name that's on that document. You should still have that same feeling when it's somebody else's name, but it is definitely a little bit more daunting when it's your name. So you definitely want to make sure that your charts look good, they're thorough. Always think about it like, would the next doctor understand what you did, what your plan was, if they were to read your chart? That's kind of how I think about it. Because they need something, it'll be helpful if they have something to go off of. So that's one thing, but I would just definitely, when it comes to learning how they like to do things, like I went to SUNY, but then I went to UAB, it kind of mirrored itself, but they might have wanted different testing. So always ask a lot of questions to the doctors you're working with, so that you can have a better understanding of what they expect out of you and what you can be doing to show that like you are the resident that they wanted you to be.
These are huge pearls that y'all are dropping. They really are. Things that I wish that I had known when I was in your seat. So we're coming up to the end of our time, but one last thing, and then whatever other piece of advice that you all would like to give. What do you believe you truly gained from completing a residency? And we'll start with you, Dr. Millian.
Yeah, so with my residency, honestly, I feel like I've just gained that confidence of, working with the patients. At the beginning, my first couple days, I would like have to center myself, take a deep breath before walking in with a patient. Now I'm like, okay, give me the chart, let me go in. So definitely, learning to manage difficult patients, patients are like, it's been an hour, why am I still here? Or, you know, they have cataracts and like I need glasses, but you need to go to surgery type things. Like being able to manage the different patients and having that rapport with patients, definitely that's what I have picked up from this. And having my like evaluation reviews with my preceptor, he also said the same thing, that he's noticed that I've gotten more confidence in my skills and diagnosing and treating different things that come in.
Dr. Wilson, you're muted.
Yep, got it. Okay, yeah. So I actually think this is the most important question of the day. So I wrote some little notes here, and so I wrote some things like personally things I felt like I gained from residency. And the first thing for me personally, I wanted to work in a hospital. After rotating through hospitals, I said, hey, this is the type of setting I want to be in. I want to be, working with the other physicians and MDs and the ER and all of that. That's a really cool setting to me. And it'd be really difficult to get that kind of job without a residency or with a lot of experience in ocular disease. And a residency is just a way to fast track getting there. Um, the biggest and the next biggest thing for me is just the confidence that I have now. Just like Dr. Millian was saying, I I don't know everything about ocular disease, and I never will. But I feel completely confident. I've been moonlighting all month. I've been staying with my wife the month here in California, and I've been moonlighting at 4 or 5 different practices, and I feel completely confident that there's nothing that's going to walk through my door that day that's gonna throw me off. I'll be able to figure it out. And a year ago, I couldn't say that at all. And I picked up a job now precepting at one of SCCO's satellite clinics here in Southern California. And so I didn't think I wanted to work with students before residency, and now I'm loving it so far. And I've found retinal tears and retinal holes. We had we had an adult the other day that had he was he had a unilateral temporal hemianopsia on his visual field, completely respected the vertical midline. And I think a year ago, if that walked in, I don't even know if I would have known how serious that was. And if I did, I probably would have just been, crapping my pants, not knowing what to do. But, the student kind of froze, didn't know what to do. And I was able to just take over and do it. And I know and get him to the ER and get him taken care of. And a year ago, I would have been that student, deer in the headlights, not knowing what to do. So in 1 year of residency, it was just cool to see, how much I've grown. At IHS, I've been in every situation. There are a lot of situations. We do inpatient in the ER. I've seen car crash victims, domestic abuse victims, and go in and you do a DFE on a patient that's, completely laid out, broken all over, and that puts a lot of stress on you. But after doing something like that, I feel like I can handle anything. So I'm a big fan of residency. I think it makes us look more competent and professional to other professions when we're able to come out of school or come out of residency that quickly and chart thoroughly, like we were talking about, appropriately diagnose diseases, do all of that. I think it's really important personally and as a profession.
So for myself, I feel like I definitely agree with the confidence and just having a level of comfortability when it comes to seeing patients. I definitely gained. I think when anybody does a residency, you can market yourself better when it comes to applying for jobs. You also don't have a restriction where you can work. So meaning if you are a person where you wanted to work in academia, it's not very common to for a doctor to be hired that didn't do a residency, unless, let's just say, they just work there 1 or 2 days to precept the students in the clinic. But I felt like for me, I would not have, and I did see this as I got out, but I didn't have much of a learning curve when I started practicing. It just almost everything felt like it was, even though it's not basic knowledge, to me, it felt like because of that exposure, patient count is so important when you're learning. So to be able to see all of these patients that are specifically within the pediatric population, I felt like there wouldn't be too much where that would give me pause, that I would say, oh, I'm not really sure where to go from here. That probably will happen for everyone at some point, but you just want you want to feel comfortable and feel like you truly are the doctor that can handle, see most patients. And for me as well, when it comes to even thinking about doing a residency, I wanted to do that because I wanted my credentials to speak for themselves before I even walked into a room. Because I do think if you are able to just market yourself or have as many credentials as you can, it really does help you to go further, in my opinion.
Those are all great words of advice. We do have one more question from the chat. What for you doctors who do have your fellowship already, how was doing a residency helpful to the fellowship process? Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder? And would you recommend becoming a fellow?
I can speak on that because I don't know if I think you guys, did you guys do it yet? I don't know. You'd have to do it. I think you do it at that year after.
I'm sitting in November.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually waited a year after my residency because after I did a 3-4 program for college, so I did 3 years undergrad, then I went into optometry school, then I did my residency. I wanted to make sure my case report and everything was pristine before I sat. But residency is very helpful in that some of the things you're already doing help to get you points. So to be able to sit for your FAO, you have to have 50 points. So residency gets you 10 points. In your residency, it's encouraged to do things like posters or papers, which papers are technically like lectures. But
hey, Dr. McGee, it's 20 points now for residency.
Oh, for residency. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So 20 points for residency, and then 10 points for poster, paper. Everybody, I believe most residencies require you to just write a case report, like a paper to begin with. So that also you can use, but you need 50 points. So if residency gets you 20, that takes away the need from needing to do posters, writing 3 case reports, because it is such a long, extensive process where when you submit your case report, they'll likely have edits or extra questions, more things they want you to fill out. So to be able to do the least amount is best. I do actually recommend becoming a fellow. Like I just said, credentials. But so if you can do it, why not? And then you're already kind of on that track by doing the residency. So that's my personal opinion. And then I asked, going into residency, I personally didn't understand why FAO was a thing, why I'd want to do it. It is more so prestigious, but I will say it is really like a community. It's a lot of education that you can get anytime you go to academy. To be a part of that group of doctors is just a beautiful thing. And once my co-resident did tell me when he was a student and he was just shadowing optometrists, college student, that doctor did tell him that he would not refer anybody to any doctor that didn't have an FAO. That may not always happen, but it is something where it shows that you were willing to take that extra step for your education, in my opinion.
And I can't speak too much on what it's like to be a fellow because I'm not a fellow yet. But residency did make it easier for me to get my 50 points, like we were talking about. I got 20 points from doing residency. I did already have to write a paper for residency, and then I did 2 posters this year. And so residency made that track pretty, I won't say easy, but it made it smooth to get it done. But what I will say is that made my residency year probably a lot crazier than it needed to be. Because it's you write a paper, but then they really pick it apart. I had to make like months of edits to my paper to finally get it accepted. So I don't think it needs to be done during residency year, but it can be done. And if that's something you think about, or that's something you think you might want to do, something to think about is looking into what the CE allocation is for your residency site. So I know for me, I got $3,000 for CE events. So they paid for my flights and my registration for when I went and did posters and things like that. If you didn't have that extra money, it might be tough to go do those posters. So just something to think about. But yeah, same thing. I definitely want to have those credentials, and I want to be the best I can be, and I want other people to know that I'm trying to be the best I can be. And it seems like fellowship's a great way to do that.
Absolutely. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Dr. Cleaver, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I always have questions, but I was gonna give the audience a chance first. Oh, Emily says she has a question. All right, while we wait on Emily to let's see what she said. What are good questions to ask residency directors when looking into a program aside from what we've already discussed?
Good one.
And I'll open that up for any of the 3 panelists.
You know, a more important question to ask is to the previous residents, I would almost say. Because the residency director, they want to match someone as much as you want to match somewhere. So not that anyone's going to be dishonest or anything like that, but if you talk to a previous resident, you could get a lot bigger feel for how things work there. Because you want to be at a place where you're going to mesh and feel comfortable the whole year, because that's just going to create the best learning environment for you. And they're going to be it's just like a first date, right? They're going to be putting on their best face during that interview. You always want to get a second opinion, I think. So it's just like in the group chat when you're going on a date and things like that. So that's what I think. And then logistics, salary, time off, am I going to be precepting soon? All those are important questions to ask too, but it's generally information that's
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And then I would also say if like your schedule, blanking on the word, but if you can if it's flexible, so meaning like one afternoon of my week was vision therapy. Technically, if I wanted more vision therapy, I could do that. Or if I wanted to precept students a little bit more, I could do that. But I definitely think like you can reach out to the directors and see if like typically they suggest they'll say, oh, I have previous residents you can talk to, but you can always reach out to them. For me, when I was going through that application process before the ORMATch even started, before we were able to apply based on that ASCO residency directory, I reached out to the programs and told them, hey, like based on what I was reading, I think I might be a good fit for the program. Like, is there any time like we could sit down to discuss things more, or if I could talk to a previous resident? And typically they're open to that, or at least will direct you towards a previous resident. So I think that's always great. And then you could always ask like if they feel like there's anything you should do to prepare. I always say just take a break before residency. There's not much you can do. It's just you go right in and you'll get used to it. But they might have recommendations.
One thing that I kind of asked my director was like along the lines of expectations, like how many patients would I be seeing? Because, you know, we come from school seeing like at most maybe 4 or 5. And my residency kind of was tailored towards how I was progressing. So at the beginning, I was seeing like 12 to 15 patients. Now I'm up to about 35 patients a day. And that is a good mix of like comprehensives and follow-ups and um, technology. But like I said, I do have that tech support that helps me with seeing all those patients. So definitely that was something that I was really interested in knowing, like just how many patients I would be seeing in a day. And along the lines of what Dr. McGee was saying, there's actually another directory where it lists all the residents, like their contact information of like previous residents and, you know, where they are. So that's something that you can do too if your residency director for some reason doesn't give you their information.
And then I would also say, if you are super ambitious, and if you're home right now and you want to do residency and you want to do a residency near where you are, reach out to them, call them, and ask them if you can visit, if you can shadow for half a day. I over the Christmas holiday before 4th year, I visited all of the residency sites while I was at home. I just drove out there and they let me follow them around for half a day. People really like to talk about themselves. And so they'll really appreciate that you took time from your holiday to come and spend a half a day or a day with them. And I drove all the way out to where Dr. Roten's office is in Louisiana because I just thought that's what I wanted to do. So I would definitely say the sooner, the better, and the earlier that you can start that networking with the residency directors, certainly do that. We have another question. Is there any paperwork that you have to do before or after residency? And then when do you start looking for a job post-residency?
There's always paperwork. that never ends. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. And if you're going to a federal site, there's going to be even more. You got to get fingerprinted, do all of this stuff. But yeah, I mean, nothing that wasn't manageable. It's just, it just seems like it's never ending for sure. And that's with any job. That's not just residency. And then I started looking for jobs. I mean, at Academy, they already are doing like job fairs for the residents. So just a few months into residency, you can kind of be looking for jobs all throughout residency. And then the site you're at might want you to stay. So have conversations with them too. And, you know, you'll be able to compare offers and network and do things like that throughout the year.
For me, I applied, I think starting in, my residency started in June, and then I started to apply in January. Now I only applied to 2 places, but so I don't know if that I would, recommend doing that. It worked out in my favor, but you never know. But yeah, I started around January, so my residency would have finished in June of that year. So like 6 months from when I was going to be done with my residency. And then what was the first half of that question? Sorry.
About paperwork.
Oh,
whatever paperwork needs.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, that I was a little bit confused. But there was paperwork just because you have to get credentialed, that type of thing. I will say, in my experience at UAB, they did a lot of the paperwork for us. So we didn't have to, like, even with a teacher's license, I didn't have to take any exams, like do the standard like application for licensure. So I actually like that aspect. Just sometimes they would send us stuff and then I sign off on it. But yeah, I didn't feel like I had much paperwork if you're talking about like that aspect. I wasn't sure if there was more to it though. But
yeah, is that what the person meant asking the question, like paperwork, like
they just said paperwork, so I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Yeah, but otherwise everybody I think has to do a paper in general, like that case report, if that's not what you meant. Yeah.
I have a question. All of you mentioned moonlighting at some point. Can you just kind of touch on insurance, malpractice insurance, liability insurance, and how the pros, well, what you need in order to moonlight.
Yeah, so America's Best, and I would imagine Dr. Millen had the same experience. They handled my malpractice for me. They covered that for you, which was nice. But then other jobs that I had to get my own malpractice insurance because I had moonlighted at a couple different places. And you can just get quotes from people. I knew another doctor that had me get a quote from someone. It was like $200 for the year for moonlighting. But I know the AOA um, has its own malpractice you can apply for. So there's that. Just as long as you're licensed, and those places are usually pretty they need people, so they're pretty easy jobs to get generally. And then there was a question we missed before, which was question one. Let me see, and it was on if there was any grants or anything to get during residency. There's there's not like a ton of the typical things you might see, but there is scholarships you can apply for residency. I know the NOA has a couple. Um, and then there's a lot of like poster competitions. So I entered posters into a few competitions and I won one at the end. I got in second place at the NOA and won some money with that and some other things. So there's lots of options like like that out there, just scholarships and things like that. Just things you have to look for. But I'd say your biggest supplemental income probably is moonlighting if you're able to do that during the year.
I didn't moonlight, so I have nothing to add to that. Sorry. I don't know if anybody was waiting on that.
Okay, any other questions before we wrap up? Quiet group.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
If you don't moonlight and if you don't get a grant, technically the only way to support yourself is to maybe live with a family member or something. Is that what that is like?
You said live with a family member?
Or like a spouse?
Right, gotcha. So I mean, it's more so just about the budgeting. So like my salary is 42,000. I didn't pay off any loans at that time. In hindsight, I might have put a little bit in there. But for me, I lived alone. So I think if we get into like the nitty gritty, I lived in Birmingham, 1,200 square foot apartment, $1,200. So overall, like that, I got by just fine. I didn't feel like I was like my account was being overdrawn or anything. Now if you do that, that is a good idea to live with somebody because you could save some money by doing that. I just didn't have that luxury. So but that's not a bad idea. You can still live off of the amount, but it's not going to be like I'm living the life for sure. So just yeah,
But I mean, you're coming from being a student and making negative money, so you're gonna feel like you're making some money now. I mean, yeah, and now a lot of them are going up. I'd say most of them are at least in the 40s now. So I mean, you have money to live. A lot of people live on that, but and just another plug for Indian Health Service. You make more. My rent was only $200 a month, or is only $200 a month there. So there's that. And then, we didn't talk about this. I really meant to, but Dr. McGee mentioned the loans. Public service loan forgiveness is a type of loan forgiveness for people who work in public service, and that's IHS's, schools, VAs, a lot of different places. Kaiser Permanente now qualifies for those, but most of those jobs you need a residency to get into those positions. But that's a loan forgiveness option that's out there, and that's where you make a payment for 10 years, and all of your loans are forgiven. And then IHS pays $25,000 a year toward your student loans if you're working for them. And so a lot of IHS docs never pay on their student loans if they do PSLF. So a lot of options out there, and residency just opens those doors a lot of times. So I just throwing that in there.
Thank you.
And we have one last question. how much billing and coding were you expected to know going into residency? Or were you?
For mine, that's a good question, actually. I know that it was relatively soon into the residency that I was to understand what should be submitted, but my residency had a residency conference. So every week we met to discuss cases, whatever it may be. And one of those, they did go through billing and coding with us. Because they understood that we may not have the best understanding. Also, different places you're at, it might be different coding. And what I mean by that is at UAB, if you put in an S code, that was for like patients who had Medicaid. At my practice now, we do that for patients where they're private pay. So it's just, I don't think right from the bat they're gonna say like, oh, you should absolutely know this. But I would think like they do expect that you pick up based on like the exams that you're seeing. So, common sense would tell us that if I'm seeing a comp and this is like the code I'm supposed to put in, like if I'm not the best at remembering that, I should maybe mark that down because I shouldn't be the person that asks multiple times something I should know or have been told. So I would just recommend really paying attention to it. But they'll probably be lenient with it.
As a fourth year, I'd say just, try to get to know what a level 2 is, a level 3 is, a level 4 is. But like Dr. Hughes said, most places are gonna teach you to code the way they want to. And these big places, they have billing specialists that handle a lot of it. So I wouldn't stress too much about it.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. I've basically just kind of learned as I go. And, if all the insurances have different policies and everything is different. So if I see something that I'm not familiar with, I just ask my insurance lady, like, what do I do for this one? And they're happy to help me. So just kind of code as you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Millian, Dr. Wilson, and Dr. McGee. This was a very eye-opening session. I really hope our fourth years took quite a bit from this, because this is information you wouldn't really get anywhere else unless you went to find it yourself. Dr. Cleaver, do you have any last thoughts?
No, not at all. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for agreeing to participate. If you haven't gotten your shirt, it should be coming soon. Thanks to Dr. Johnson. She's the one that handles the shirts or whatever else. But I hope to see you guys at least one more time this year. Or, of course, we hadn't met each other in person yet, but I hope to see you guys at the academy if you end up going. Dr. Johnson and I are giving a lecture that we need to start working on at some point. And I know, Jacob, you're doing a poster there, right, Jacob?
No, but I'm sitting for my fellowship.
Okay, that's right. That's right. So that gives us a reason to celebrate.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. So no, like I said, I'm not sure if Dr. McGee is going, but no, we'll love to see you guys there.
I'll be there.
If it is, you going
next year?
Next year. Where's it next year?
Boston.
I think it's in Sandy. Oh,
Boston. Yeah. Yeah. We gotta go there. For sure. Yeah, we gotta go there. But no, thank you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for agreeing to participate. And, of course, we'll ask you to do, once you say yes to us, we'll just keep asking you to do stuff at some point.
You're on our list.
We'll reach back out to you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Of course, if there's anything that we can do to help you guys out, then let us know.
I think I saw, I don't know if it's Nana. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but she's asked for contact info. You want like a email and a cell phone? Like what works?
Email is good.
I'm going to put my IG in the chat. Let's see.
And you did say it right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Nana is pretty settled on doing the residency and going then into academia once she's finished.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, she's dead set on that, which she's definitely going to do. She's going to do it. And I have their emails and everything. I can share them in the group.
Okay, you can you can share my cell also. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put mine too. I put my chat, my email, and my IG in the chat. Instagram. I mean, anyway, you want to reach out to me, but all three of them, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
I would recommend texting, ma'am. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Yeah, email, it might get lost for a while. So
Yeah.
Well, me and Dr. Humes figured that out the other day.
Okay, honestly, I think it was that exact day though, in my defense. Like I think earlier that day, and then I texted you. So we were on the same wavelength.
So
How dare you?
let me text him, Dr. Hughes. These
I
young
was like,
folks.
why don't I answer my emails?
no, well, I'm sorry, I didn't answer, but Dr. Humes, I read the email and was.
I know you read
I just didn't respond. I
too.
guess, but yeah.
Cool. Cool. Wait, I'm not sure where this recording is gonna go, Tiff. If it pops up, was it recording when you hopped on?
Yeah.
It was, but then it stopped.
No,
And then
it kept going. I mean,
kept
it's definitely
going?
recording now.
Okay.
Maybe it's still gonna. Yeah, maybe it's still gonna go to the BEP deal. I can just edit all this other stuff out, so that's fine.
All right.
I
Well,
don't
thank
wanna
y'all
have
again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you guys.
For sure.
Thank you
Great.
guys. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.